Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
It's July the 14th, and we turn our attention today to 1 Chronicles 18 through 20. And let's just go ahead and jump in, because 1 Chronicles 19 is going to recount some of David's massive victories for King David. We see the Lord establishing his kingship. And remember, the way that the Lord established his kingship was David chose the sword. And because he chose the sword, he was prohibited from building the house of the Lord. Now that's important. However, we see massive victories for David, especially in chapter 19. But notice at chapter 20, David goes from the mountaintop to the valley. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, Joab led out the army and ravaged the country of the Ammonites and came and besieged Rabbah, but David remained at Jerusalem. And of course, the reason, or rather the result of David staying in Jerusalem was this terrible exchange between he and Bathsheba, as well as between he and Uriah. But notice as we flip the page here, we have at verse 5, "And there was again war with the Philistines, and Elhanan the son of Jair struck down Lami, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam." So Goliath had a brother, but that's not all that he had. Look, verse 6, "And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he was also descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, struck him down. These were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David, by the hand of his servants." And so here is David and his servants taking care of all the giants in the land. And remember, those giants, they're those, and even here in this text, we see them taunting the people of Israel. And of course, the battle line is drawn, and the victory belongs to the Lord. But let's turn our attention to our New Testament reading. Let's turn to Romans. Let's look at Romans chapter 9. Look in particular as it relates at verse 33. "Behold, I am laying in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame." Now, I want you to notice in particular, as we read the Bible, notice that the ESV Everyday Bible has taken this section of Scripture and put it in sort of a block quotation so that we can recognize that it is a quote from the Old Testament. And this is important because, especially as it relates to verse 5, we always want to understand a Christ according to the Scriptures. I can't emphasize that enough as we're reading the Bible. The reason we believe in a whole Bible is because we believe in a whole Christ. And it is the Scriptures that testify concerning Jesus Christ. If we don't have the Old Testament, and again, I hope that you're getting this, not just assuming this, but understanding this. If we don't have the Old Testament, then we don't have Jesus Christ. Yes, we have fulfillment. Yes, we have prophetic references, but it's all centered on the reality of Jesus Christ. And it's not just centered on his reality, it is reoriented according to his reality. Because remember, we're going to get there, I've quoted it so far, Ephesians says that he unites the end and the beginning. And so this Jesus has united all things in himself. But look at verse 5 of Romans 10. "Moses writes about the righteousness that is based on the law, that the person who does them, the commandment, shall live by them. But the righteousness based on faith says, do not say in your heart, who will ascend to heaven, that is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that is, the word of faith that we proclaim." And what is that word of faith? Well, look at verse 9. "Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved." And so what is the word that he's talking about? Moses writes of righteousness. It's the word of Christ. Verse 10, "For with the heart one believes and is justified, with the mouth one confesses and is saved. For the Scripture says, everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame. There is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, bestowing his riches on all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But then look at this question. How will they then call on him in whom they've not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they've never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? And this is the reason that we go and engage in missions, is because we believe that whosoever calls upon the name of the Lord, whoever calls on the name of the Lord, shall be saved. But they have to hear. And in order to hear, they have to preach. And in order to preach, they have to be sent. Look at Psalm 13 as we close our reading today. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Now, we may have those moments where we think that way, but there again we have the beauty of Scripture to remind us that that the Lord has not left us. And matter of fact, remember the Psalms, they oftentimes start with our emotions, relating our tendency to doubt. But then look at the way every psalm ends, not in despair, but in hope. And this psalm is no different. Look at verse 5. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. Now, look at how it began. How long, O Lord? But then look at where it ends. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because he has dealt bountifully with me. And let's close our reading today by Proverbs 19 and verse 16 as again a reminder of our reason for reading the Scripture. Whoever keeps the commandment keeps his life, and he who despises his ways will die. Well, we have to know what the commandments are. We have to know what his ways are to keep them. And the only way that we can know his ways so that we may keep them is what we do every day as we search the Scriptures to find this Lord who is already near.